find out. Are we live? We're on. We'll find out if we're going to do an introduction right now because it's already on. Mark Nixon, welcome back to the podcast.
Good to be back. Shuffled around.
Yes, we're advancing the studio continuously. Don't you worry. Hoping to make further improvements soon as well. I'm super excited to be doing this podcast because you sent me a text that said, let's meet for coffee. I went, yep, I'm in. And then you said, let's do a podcast. It took me 1 second to reply, yep, absolutely, definitely. We couldn't decide what to talk about, could we? So I put out the question to my 6 Steps to Slim Fat Loss members. I am going to be talking to, I wrote, stress management expert. I don't know what you class yourself as. You've got that many qualifications and letters after your name. I don't even know what you think you are anymore.
Yeah. So I'm me, and I'm a self-developed guy, and I now work with one of the big kind of pharmaceutical manufacturers, but running clinical trials, that kind of thing. I work with some of the largest businesses in the world and write courses, and so it's very much become the topic of choice.
Stress
now.
And mental health and happiness.
And that's a big component is the positive psychology and wellness element, because ultimately we're not after stress, anxiety, depression. We're after the opposite of.
That's why I said in happiness, because they're the things we don't want ideally.
Yeah.
They're the things we're getting away from, and the thing we're going towards is maybe happier, calmer, more confident, more self-confident, more self-aware, more self-actualized, whatever vocabulary you want to use.
Yep.
Absolutely awesome.
So if as one of your kind of members asked about in terms of that question, which was around caring, the first thing I said is actually I'm not an expert on caring, and so I might be able to answer some elements of that if I can kind of project myself into that situation. So
well, we'll see what we get to, because the amount of questions was insane, wasn't it?
I think it's pretty manageable. We'll have a go. We've got an hour. We'll have a go.
The questions are awesome as well,
good.
aren't they? Absolutely awesome. There's some real mind blowers coming up, and they're all real people with real stresses and struggles. These people have commented these problems because these are problems that they're actually dealing with, and we're going to chat about, see what we can do about helping these people.
Yep.
Aren't we? So I've got the questions on Facebook. I'm just going to go from the top.
Pauline, I think it was Pauline, wasn't it?
It's Pauline, first. Is that all right? I'm just going to go from the top, and I'm just going to read out the question, ask you it, and then we'll just go back and forth and see what we think. Yeah,
let's go.
Yes. So question 1 is from Pauline. You're exactly right. She says, every time I try and pick myself up, along comes something else to slap me in the face. I've heard of the saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I was just wanting some practical tips. She says she does some things already to try and help her mental health, which is good, on how to keep, and she's put my energy and my vibrations high. So I think what she's asking there is, every time she's moving through life and she's trying to get stuff done, she's trying to be positive and she's trying to work on things, something in life just comes up and it slaps her in the face, and what can she do, do you think, to try and stay positive?
So the first thing I noticed is the language, and I think the language is key here. And so what I did was, my wife Lisa asked me, what we were going to be talking about, and so I showed her some of the kind of things, and my wife had my wife had just gone through something that particular day, and then a car. I mean, when people say the car's broke down, I kind of half sometimes don't believe people. My wife's car broke down on the way home. A
real breakdown.
It turns out the gear cable snapped.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
a real thing. I don't know anything
thing.
About cars, but that thing sounds necessary.
So basically, you can't change gear.
It sounds like you need it.
And then there was something else as well. So there was this little run of 3 things. And so in those kind of situations, it's very easy to see and believe that life is somehow picking on us and we're somehow being singled out.
This is exactly what I thought as well, because I thought when she put slap in the face, I thought that sounds like you're taking it personal.
Yes.
And that's not the way it is.
No. And I really would direct people towards a YouTube TED Talk. So again, I speak a lot about resilience, just because it's the thing that we're after. And again, it's the thing that can keep us healthy and well, etc.
Give us a quick definition of resilience then, in case anybody's not sure.
So
I remember the first time you said that to me, I was thinking,
you were
what do you
thinking
exactly
strong,
mean?
weren't you? And you said that, and I said no, actually, because strong. Again, I cast iron strong, but it's also very brittle and it shatters. It doesn't bend. It doesn't give. And so, whereas spring steel, which is what they make springs out of, and in fact, my daughter's stretch arm strong, we could have it right across the chairs right now. We'll let the thing go, and it goes right back in 1 minute. It's back to normal. So that's resilient. That's resilient. And so it's not strength. It's actually flexibility. It's adaptability, and it's interesting because I've thought about this in terms of COVID. Imagine someone had said to us before we had even heard this COVID thing, this is what you're going to go through over the next 12 months. Can you cope? I reckon most people would have said, no. But we have. And so the point here, the evidence is that we can and we have. But actually, when we're asked to predict how we're going to cope with these things, often we kind of underestimate ourselves.
Yeah, but in actuality, we've dealt with every single thing that we've ever come up against.
As has Pauline.
True, because she's still here right now, isn't
Exactly.
she? I think you're exactly right.
And I've met Pauline. We met for a coffee.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, going back, the language is really important. And so, the language there, and again, a big hero of mine is Tony Robbins, and I learned this from him. That language is really important because, again, if you're telling yourself that life is slapping me in the face, then that's so. Again, you'll know that one of the most powerful questions I have, and the reason I was talking about that TED talk. So it's a lady called Lucy Hone. So if you want to it's Lucy Hone, Lucy Hone. And so I put in YouTube TED Talk resilience. Loads came up, but that's the one I went with because she is and was a resilience researcher and expert, but that she then lost her daughter in a car accident. So all this stuff she's learned academically, it became a lifeline. And so it's a fantastic TED Talk to watch. And so you've got somebody here who's sharing this, but it's not academic. It's not because the book says. It's because I've had to use this to literally get through from one day to the next. And so she gives 3 key traits of resilient people. And one of them, the third one is, number 1 is resilient people understand that bad things happen to everybody. It's as simple as that.
That was my point number 1 as well. Yeah,
Yep.
Life's just tough. Probably most of the time for most people. Yeah, it's not just tough for Pauline. If it's not this now, it will be that next for Pauline. There'll be more things to come.
Yeah. And if you're one of those things, so you've got a stag there. Now the lion's not so bad, but yeah, if you're a stag, the lion, that's bad news. And so every single organism, other than humans and domesticated animals, get up and survive and scrape by. And humans have created this Western world that kind of suggests that it shouldn't be like a struggle. It should be, and actually no. It sounds harsh. So we move the soft soap away. The hard truth is, life fundamentally, has always been tough. We've made it really easy, unfortunately. So the minute it seems to get
unfortunately
tough,
and fortunately.
Yeah. So the minute it seems to get tough, it's like there's something wrong with the world. But actually, the precondition of life is it is tough. So number 2 is resilient people are able to skillfully focus their attention onto the controllables. And again, forget the uncontrollables, the things you can't do anything about. Focus on the things you can do things about. See things as they are, but not worse than they are. So the question is, what's really going on here? What's the truth of this? And then number 3 is the magic question, as far as I'm concerned. I'm, again, someone who's been to counselling twice, different things, different counselling styles, and basically, CBT-based cognitive behavioural therapy. And the most powerful question is what I am thinking, saying, doing helpful or unhelpful? So is the language I'm using here helpful or unhelpful?
Helpful or harmful.
And actually, saying that life's kind of slapping you down, slapping you in the face is not helpful language, because it suggests that A, it shouldn't be happening, and B, that it's kind of singling you out, if you like, and everyone else. It's not that she's not implying everyone else out there is having a party, but it's almost like life is kind of picking on her for some reason, and it's not, and it's not. So it can seem like when we're having a run of bad luck, that again we're being singled out for but as soon as I showed my wife that kind of post, my wife kind of went, do you know what I mean? I know exactly what she means. I know exactly what she means. And so what we have to do is just be really kind of accurate in terms of what's actually going on here. There's some bad things that are happening, and this is the other thing, is that life isn't. We like life to just sail along, and it's dead predictable, and what we plan to do, we get to do. But actually, when you look at life, it's just like this. You have some good, you win some, you lose some. You win some, you lose some. And sometimes we're on a winning streak, and sometimes we're on a bit of a losing streak, if you like. And it's that, I think TLC is a good one to come in here, which is not tender loving care, but temporary local changeable. Which is to look at things and think, okay, well, is this temporary? Okay, is it local? In other words, is it happening to everybody, or is this just happening to me? And can it change? And is it likely to change in future? And that just stops us seeing things as forever, and it's never going to change. And so again, going back to a Tony Robbins thing, which is basically, what are we focused upon here? And again, we're focused on kind of like a negative and life kind of giving us a rough time. And what meaning have I given to this situation? And again, so that the meaning there is, this means that, can you see the kind of negative connotations there? Whereas
yeah,
actually,
it's the
when
story you're telling yourself.
It's the story. And when you can actually tell yourself a better story, this means that, yeah, there's something bad at the moment. But okay, what's the, how is this likely to pan out? I think in the future.
It's not always what happens. Sometimes it's how you see it, isn't it?
It's how you take it.
Yeah, it's not always what happens to you, but it's how you deal with it as well.
Yeah.
So it's to see it maybe not as a slap in the face, but just as an obstacle. It might be an obstacle. It might be a setback.
Yeah.
True, but everybody in life
is going to have.
Yeah, and including all great and successful people,
Yeah.
they've all come up against obstacles
Yep.
and tried to figure their way around them. Like, I would recommend this book to anybody. The Obstacle is the Way. The Ancient Art of Turning Adversity into Advantage. That's exactly what we're talking about now,
Which
isn't it?
Connor bought me that book. Not
I
that
have a
one
tattoo
there.
on my arm there from it.
Yeah.
I believe in this book that powerfully. And it's a stoic book about the art of staying steady during tough times and about turning obstacles into advantages, isn't it?
Yeah. And the reason I kind of patted this is, so my acronym is SOFA: setbacks, obstacles, failure, adversity. We're going to get them. You're going to get them. You can't avoid them. Every life is going to have them. And so again, it's how you respond to the setbacks, obstacles, failure,
Yeah,
and
when you
adversity.
get one, better to think, I expected this, rather than expecting everything to go smoothly. That's
Exactly.
unrealistic in the first
Yeah,
place.
it really is. And so
Expect obstacles.
yeah, and so you've got basically the best strategy approach, as I call it, which is, again, what's the best thing to think here? What are the best things? What's the best mindset to have? What are the best actions I can take? Again, what are the best meanings that I can attribute to this? And again, ultimately, again, what you focused upon, what meaning have you given this, but what are you going to do about it? Which is a Les Brown, again, one of the kind of Black American kind of preacher style, but he's one of the most sought after speakers ever. And yeah, it's, what are you going to do about it?
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, because probably about time moving on to the next question soon. But I was going to say then, what is a one bit summary, do you think, on this question? I would say, from me, my overall feeling, I would say assess and adjust. I'd say, like you said, assess the situation clearly, calmly, see what's happening, and then my brain says this to me in my own head. It says, what next?
Yeah.
That's what my brain says to me on obstacles, no matter what really it is. Like, one path, I was going this way and planning to, and now that's been shut off for some reason, or something's changed. What next? Look for an alternative path, work your way around obstacles rather than just being stopped dead by them.
And so when we get into stress coping, which we'll do on a couple of these, fundamentally there's two ways of dealing with it. You either can deal with it or you can't. So there's something to do, so it's like losing a loved one. You can't do anything about that, okay? But what you can do is what's called, so rather than problem-focused coping, so there's something I can do about this problem, it's called emotion-focused coping, where you're then looking at how you're coping emotionally if you can't actually do anything about the situation. And so again, in things like cancer recovery, they look at you can't you're not much you can do about the fact that you have cancer, but how can you deal with how you feel about it? So again, is there anything here that Pauline can do about a situation? And then again, make sure we know what that is. And then, but if there's something she can't do about that situation, then she needs basically good coping techniques in terms of emotional coping, which we're going to come on to.
So you said problem coping.
So problem-focused coping
and emotional coping.
So if you've got a leaky pipe, okay, you can do all the emotional coping you like, but it's still going to keep leaking. So you've got problem-focused coping, which sorts the thing out, okay, or you've got you've got marital problems, for instance. Again, you've got to sort them out, or you're going to be dealing with how you feel about it. And there's adaptive ways of dealing with how you feel about it. In other words, healthy, helpful ways of dealing with feelings. But then there's maladaptive ways. Harmful, Again, overeating, alcohol, avoidance, misuse of substances, gambling, shopping, whatever.
I call it dealing with it and coping with it.
Yeah.
Dealing with it is problem solving. If you can deal with the problem, fix the stressor, the thing that's causing the issue. If you can't deal with it, then or even if you can deal with it, then you also I try and teach people that they need dealing with mechanisms. This is what we do with people's fat loss, for example. If one of the things that's causing them problems in life is they're overweight, we can actually fix that. Yeah. We can actually just change.
It's controllable.
It's actually controllable. Yeah, we can actually just fix the variables. We can change your calorie intake, your weight will come down. We've actually fixed the problem. Some problems in life, like you said, you can't fix.
No.
So then you need to be able to cope with them.
Yeah.
We need coping mechanisms. You are right. That is going to come up soon in loads of questions, isn't it?
And then the last thing I think on this is, again, it's for point to take stock of. So the question I'm thinking here is, what is she after? And so a great question is then let's say I'm after comfort in this situation or whatever it might be. How have I managed that in the past? Okay, and so what have I done in the past that's similar to this? And then what you can do is say, look, do you know what? I've coped with this in the past. Okay, how did I do that? How did I do this in the past? In other words, again, going back to your kind of ABC model of competence, again, how have I done this in the past? And so it's not something I can't do again. But again, if she needs support in that, again, that's really important. So again, I'm pretty sure we're going to come on to those different stress coping mechanisms in different questions. Okay.
I don't know where we're going to go because I think we could go back and forth about this one question for an entire hour.
Could.
It just feels like it's going on and on and on and on and on. That's absolutely great though, thank you, and I hope that helped.
Yeah, I mean, I've met Pauline. The fact that she's gone through what she's gone through, she's gone through some crap there that most people will never go through, thank God. And so again, for me, she is resilient. She's proved that she's still here. She's coped. Maybe not in the way you might have or somebody else might have, but she's still here.
Well,
she's coped.
Everybody would cope different regardless.
Exactly. So you can't say, right, well, I'm coping bad because blah, blah, blah. No, you're coping.
Coping
you're still
uniquely.
Here. Yeah.
At best.
And so again, it's just to take stock of, do you know what, good for me. And really important this, and again, this is why I've brought this book, Self-Compassion in Psychotherapy, okay? So important, okay, that you are kind to yourself. Because I'll read from it a bit later on. In fact, no, I'm going to read it now. Actually,
good.
Okay, it's just so important.
Good.
Self-criticism. Okay, I'm going to look at the camera now. Self-criticism is one of the biggest predictors of serious mental health problems.
Wait. Self-criticism is one of the biggest predictors. Okay, so like negative self-talk. So being negative about yourself.
Not being kind to yourself. Okay.
Is one of the biggest predictors of
serious mental health.
All right. Okay.
Okay, and so the whole book, so the foreword is by a chap called Richard J. Davison. He's a world famous neuroscientist, friends with the Dalai Lama, one of the times 100 most influential people in the world, and you've never heard of the guy.
No, I've never heard of the guy.
Exactly, and he's wrote the foreword to this book, which is basically, it's a psychotherapist, and it's all about basically self-compassion, which is so important. And having looked at these questions, having looked at people's profiles and looked at some of the stuff they've put on, and it's quite clear, and again, because people have put in the comments about how they struggle to be nice to themselves, in essence, and it's really important we can actually learn this, basically wishing yourself well. It's really, really important here. And I don't mean wishing yourself well, I wish I was well. I don't mean that as in just like, that's not what I meant. So it's a case of, do you know what? Basically being your own best cheerleader. I think it's the language, rather than being your own slave driver and being your own, basically beating yourself up when you've not done as maybe good as you could be, but actually saying, do you know what? Again, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. And I think it's Foy Jones, I think, who again, she put a post on there, and on one of her pictures, and it was something like, "It's okay, Okay, it's okay to kind of not manage some things sometimes. It's okay with this and that and the other. And at the bottom, yeah, it's okay for me not to succeed sometimes. And it's okay not to be. And I remember having a conversation with Pauline, and she was a bit disappointed because she was supposed to be like running a marathon or something, and she couldn't because what she was going through. And she's like got this version of her that was doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, there is no version of you doing that. Okay, look at the crap you're going through. Okay, and again, don't be hard on yourself. Okay, self-compassion, so important.
Takes some self-acceptance to do that, which is another, which like you said, accepting that you're a human, not a robot.
Exactly.
You can't handle everything perfectly. You can't handle everything all at once, all the time. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Do you want to move on to the next question? Yeah, awesome. So
It's from Kate.
Yeah, the next question is called, well, switching on to something kind of on a different track. So these questions are absolutely awesome. So Kate then asked, how to stop overthinking things / having a busy mind when you are trying to get to sleep.
Brilliant. So yeah, this is exactly what you all did to me last night, because I got the questions and my brain is like a dog with a bone, and as soon as I started, I thought, oh no, I know what's going to happen here. I'm going to have very little sleep. So I managed 2 hours and 15 minutes.
You look quite spry.
I'm not doing bad, am I? Yeah.
No,
So my brain was not overthinking; it was just thinking. So that's the good news. I mean, what is overthinking? I mean, so that's a good question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
So, as somebody that's had anxiety and my anxiety, if I didn't use yoga, it's very simple. I use yoga every night, and I mean every night. I've used it every single night throughout lockdown, and I've done the same exercise for years, and that keeps me sane. And I'll explain why, as we go through. But one of the key questions, and so when COVID kicked in, and the lockdown, and again the increase in police, and we had that conversation, didn't we, about my brain really noticing the police and getting anxious about it. I learned to ask this question, and so the question is, can I outthink this thing? And I learned to ask that question a lot. And so the minute you realise you're overthinking something, just ask the question, is this something that thought can actually solve?
I'm glad you're going this way again, because this is the way I was going with it as well, because one of the things I thought is, well, whatever it is, you're not fixing it in bed. So number one is self-acceptance again, that you're not going to fix the issue at 1 a.m. laid in bed. If you could have thought your way through it, you probably already would have, with all the overthinking you've been doing. So I thought the same.
Most of this, so basically all I did was I kind of got these questions down, then kind of banged some stuff in there. Just kind of wanted to brain dump, and so most of this was written between 10:30 and about 12 o'clock last night.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
But no, it's fine, because that's just the way my brain works. And again, I can lose one night's sleep and I'm fine. So I wasn't overthinking, I wasn't stressed at all. I was just thinking, what do I want to say? How do I stay on point with this? And so is this something that thought can actually solve? If the answer is yeah, great. Okay, so basically get a piece of paper and write a plan. And so what that does is it says to your brain, okay, I'm on with this. So worry is just undirected planning. That's all it is. Okay, it's your brain trying to help you out. So one of my key things, it's a little Mark Nixonism, is it's not your fault, it's your function. Okay, in other words, what function has this got? What's its point? What's the point of this? It's your brain trying to help you out. It's trying to go, you've classed this as important. I'm trying to help you out with it. Okay, so if it needs writing down, write it down. But if you ask the question, can I outthink this? Can it be solved with thought? And the answer is no. There you go. Okay, it's as simple as that. The answer is no. And so it really is about
coming. To start working on letting it go after that point.
Yeah, and again, it's number 2 in the key traits of resilient people. It's that ability to sort the controllables out from the uncontrollables. And so, in essence, if you're thinking and thinking can't solve it, it's the wrong tool. So stress basically is the wrong tool most of the time, actually. But stress is the wrong tool because stress is a survival response. Distress is there because you can't do anything about something. That's what distress is for. And that'll link to when we get to the question about kind of, stress eating. That's basically what's happening, is distress, because you can't do something, or you don't believe you can do something about something, even if you can. So if thought's not the right tool, and stress is not the right tool, what is? And so I've had to really work hard on this one over lockdown, because I've had to lay in bed and I'm getting anxious or stressed about something, and I've had to go, right, is this the right tool? And I've had to go, no, because it can't sort it out. Right, what is a better tool? What, at 1 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, well, that'd be relaxation then. And so you then think, okay, and so, I was using every flaming tool in the book last night. So I was doing applied relaxation, which is kind of basically stretching a muscle, taking a deep breath in whilst you stretch a muscle. And then as you breathe out, you let it go. And so toes, and then feet, and then ankles, and then that way, and then that way, and then calves, and then quads, and then thighs, and then literally right up to your face. And normally you don't get that far because you've relaxed that much. Or yoga. Sometimes I'll get so I do yoga between 9 and half 9 at the bottom of the bed. It's all relaxation on the floor yoga. So that's one of the best things for anxiety. Okay, and here's why: because it produces a substance called GABA. Okay, and that's gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA. And what that does is it slows down neural firing. Okay, so neural firing, your brain cells are firing. So as we're talking now, everyone that's listening, their brain cells are firing off, talking to one another. Literally, like practically the speed of sound. It's ridiculously fast. And so when you've got an overactive mind, your brain's just like this. And so what GABA does is it literally slows down that neural firing. And so it quietens the mind. And the body and brain, and there is no body and brain. It's just the body. The brain's part of the body. There's no body and brain. It's just the body. But the body's good at sensing what's going on in your mind. And if your body is relaxing, your mind starts to go, oh yeah, it's relaxing down there. What am I so stressed out for? And so if the brain starts to detect the body, if they detect one another calming down, and that's why yoga is one of the best things for relaxation. So
they're so linked together that you can calm the mind by calming the body.
Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense.
And you're using the breathing exercise. So I recommend 4-7-8 breathing to people. And so 4-7-8. So in for 4. Holding for 7.
Holding for 7?
Which sounds like a long time.
That sounds like a long time. That was my...
No, it's a few breaths and you're into it. Or you can do 3-2-5, which is breathing for 3. Okay. Hold for 2. Out for 5.
That sounds more manageable.
Yeah. And so whenever you are whenever you are breathing out longer than you're breathing in, you are going to move into you're going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. The opposite. To
rest and digest, not fight and flight.
Exactly. The opposite of your stress response system. And so you've got worst case scenario. Okay, so let's just I have these things. Worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario here? So that's generally what you're doing when you're kind of overthinking, isn't it? You're going worst case scenario. So what is the worst case scenario? And can you cope with that? And so can you get a plan for the worst case scenario? And if the answer is yeah, good, get a plan. What's the best case scenario? What's the best case scenario that can come out of whatever it is you're thinking about? And you write that down. It's
this sounds like the RAF. They plan for the best case scenario, worst case scenario, most likely scenario.
Exactly. But I've got these other things. Positively catastrophic worst case scenario. It's brilliant, right? Why aren't you worrying about the Earth-crossing asteroids that are literally moving past us
twice a year
right now
through the toroid
meteor stream? Yeah. Why aren't you worried about?
If you worry about that, like, it's all.
So we're currently on a floating bit of rock.
Yeah.
On molten rock.
Yeah.
And why aren't we worried about that?
I am a bit. If you start thinking about it too much, it can worry you.
And there's
when you look up, there's no roof on it either.
There's scenarios, solar flares. Why aren't you worrying about all that shit? So, am I allowed to swear?
You can say whatever you want, sir. We're overdue for a Yellowstone explosion.
That's a good one. Yeah, one of the biggest volcanoes in the world.
Some people think the Queen's a reptile. It's all going wrong.
Exactly. And so the thing is, if your brain's at it, don't just kind of think, oh, I want to get rid of this. Beat it at its own game. Start literally going, do you know what, Brit? No, seriously. Literally, that's so you've got graduated exposure, where you expose yourself to bit, and then you've just got like full on, do you know what, brain, take this.
Like I don't like spiders, so you show me a picture of a spider. Is that gradual exposure?
Yeah, and
what's the opposite?
I show you a small
spider at my face.
Small black and white picture, and then a bigger colour one, blah 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 blah, then one in your hand, etc. That kind of stuff. But what you're doing here is you're literally. So when in anxiety, I had a real problem with noise, especially I have to stay in hotels a lot. And so other people's noise drives me up the wall. And so the minute that guy starts doing something in the next room, rather than trying to get rid of it, what I do is in my brain amplify it. Okay, I amplify it, and so I literally imagine fireworks going off. Seriously, I imagine brass bands going down the corridor. Literally everything, and my brain's like, oh, that guy's noise doesn't sound so bad
when
now.
you come back to reality, it's not so bad.
So it's positively catastrophic worst case, but then also, right, positively ridiculous best case scenario. Just make up this insanely stupid version of like things going insanely well, because neither are true, right? Because you're in there in bed, okay, thinking about something that ain't happened yet, so it's not true. So if it's not true, why not tell you a better untrue? Why not tell yourself a better untrue story? Okay, and then again, what's the most likely scenario? Get that figured out. And again, in other words, what if you've got, like, a relative of mine had stage 2 breast cancer, breast reconstruction, breast removal, breast reconstruction, chemo, radio, all her hair and nails falling out. I didn't know about the nails. You know what I mean? That was bad. But it's 95% recovery rate from that stage 2 breast cancer. So your brain's telling you worst case scenario. The best case is you'll get rid of it. The most likely scenario is 95%. What's the best strategy? So this is what I call best strategy approach. Given all that, okay, what's the best strategy? Plan for the best, okay, basically plan for the worst, hope for the best. If you don't know what's most likely, what can you do anyway? And again, we're back to this, what's the best thing to think? What's the best thing to say to myself? What's the best thing to do? Etc. And so that's my kind of answer to that one, really. Beat your brain at its own game. So when it's overthinking, properly overload it with stuff. And then when you've stopped, it will be like, oh yeah, this little thing you were thinking about, it's actually not that bad now, is it?
That's amazing. That's the exact opposite of what I thought about the question, which is really cool. Because there's more than one way to get the same job done.
Yes.
Isn't there?
Yeah.
Because I used to have a crazy overthinking mind. Crazy.
Yeah.
Probably like most people, I assume, because this is a common problem, isn't it? How many people's minds are whirring when you're trying to fall to sleep? It's a very, very common problem. Yeah. And I've gotten over this through meditation, essentially, and through... I class meditation as brain training.
Yeah. Or
I also class it as focus or attention span training.
Okay, so very simple. Don't try and control your thoughts. You can't. Okay, so this is not from me, this is from Professor Andrew D. Huberman, who's a neuroscientist, and again, it's the guy I was talking to you about in my Wizards book. Wizards book, yeah.
I do know.
It's basically a book that's the same colour as this, leather bound, and it's got it looks like a kind of like a...
It's got like a Pentecostal symbol of some kind on the front of it, doesn't
something
it?
like that.
I like when you're wearing the full suit and then you have like the evil book. It's like a nice dichotomy thing. You're thinking, what's going on here? I also like that suit jacket that you've got that's super posh on the outside and bright yellow on the inside. Yeah. Awesome.
It's nice, isn't it? But listen, before you think it's from TK Maxx, so it's it was 30 quid. So do you know what I mean? It's £100 with the suit for 140 quid with the suit for 30 quid. So yeah, I'm a Rotherham lad through and through. Why am I talking about that? Because in that book, I've got this thing from Andrew Huberman, and I already knew this. And everyone on the planet really knows this. You can't control your thoughts. So it is the kind of best way of putting this. As the mouth creates saliva, the brain creates thought. That's what it does, okay? And it's very good at going, you've got nothing to do, have you? Well, not really, no, I'm laying in bed. Oh, I'll start thinking then. Why? Because it's a good survival strategy. What could happen based upon what happened last time? In other words, the future and the past. Neither of which exist in reality. You've got now. And so what you do control is your attention. Okay, and so as Daniel Siegel, who's again a neuroscientist, director of the Mindsight Institute, basically where your attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connection grow. So the thing that you're thinking about a lot, your brain's going to think it's important, and it's going to keep thinking about it. And so you can say to your brain, like you said, it doesn't matter. Okay, does that matter? Not really. Okay, and just say it doesn't matter. And just imagine like you've got a computer screen and you've got the kind of recycle bin in the top. Just imagine getting it and going, stick it in there, okay, recycle. Just get it in there, delete. Other than if your brain's trying to get you to focus on something that needs sorting out. So if it needs sorting, sort it. But if it's overthinking, then just realise that your attention is on that. And the Headspace thing's really good for this. So I think is it Andy, the guy who does Headspace.
The Headspace app.
Yeah, so
Oh,
the guy that
I'm
does
not
all...
really too familiar. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, it's a guy called Andy. He's well known in the kind of, you know, those circles. So he says, imagine it's like a car. You've got a car that's coming really, really, really slow. You can easily walk past if you want, but you choose, no, I'm going to stop this car. And that's what you like when you're trying to stop thoughts. It's like trying to stop a moving car that's going really slow. You can't, you're not strong enough. And so you can move out of the way of it. And so rather than pushing against it, it's to literally just imagine standing aside and just letting it go. And guess what? Go, it will eventually. Because once you stop focusing on it, and that's why meditation, yoga, things like that work, just because you're focusing on the breath, or like a mantra or something else.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I think your brain can't really focus on many things fully at once. So if you're focused on stretching and breathing, and it hurts a bit when you're doing the yoga, you're pulling your leg into a position and you're feeling the stretch, and then you're thinking, no, don't hold your breath, breathe out. You're doing all these things. There's not really so much space anymore for all that just constant whirring to fill your mind and just take over the entire thing. The exact same as your yoga. If I'm just in bed and my brain's trying to whir itself, I just do the breathing, sometimes without the yoga as well. I'll just focus on my breathing and just think, breathe in and breathe out. Because you can't, like you said, you can't think nothing, but to some extent you can choose what you think, or you can focus on different thoughts that are coming through. And it feels the same to me as like the old counting sheep thing. You know, when people used to say count sheep to fall to sleep. Why do you do that? Because number one, it gives you something to focus on that's not your own whirring brain, and number two, it's really boring. So after, when you get to 20, you just you've stopped entertaining yourself with all your magical stories of how awful everything's going to be, and you've just started just boring sheep. Same sheep every time. Counting over.
And that's how transcendental meditation works. You get a non-word, so I got mine are shentapa. Okay, I don't know if that's a word in another language, but as far as I'm concerned, it's got no meaning for my brain.
Try Google Translate, just say it into it and see
or
what happens.
Srengatu, or Solfenta. So they're three of mine, and that's what you do in Transcend. You come up with a non-word. So basically, if I say chair, you automatically think chair. You say Solfenta, it doesn't mean anything.
No.
And you repeat it over and over again, and your brain moves into a different phase, closer to sleep. But then the other one, again, is counting backwards from 10,000. And so you will never get more than 9,950. But all you do is literally 9,900, or more often now I start from 999, so 999, but you say it nice and slow. You imagine like the words just coming past you, 900, and the slower and more lethargic you say it, the more it works. 9,998. You're not saying it in mind, and that's really good actually. That's really good, because it's a soft focus on something that's not hard to do. And it gives the brain, again, you're not stopping thinking, you are focusing your attention on something else. Okay, I think we should move on.
I do. All right, I was going to say something else, but let's move on to the next.
Because I want to get on to Melanie Vidler.
Do you now? How long have we been on the podcast timekeeper? 37 minutes. All right, we're not doing bad.
Bad for us, is it?
We're not doing bad. All right, Melanie. Her original question, she asked the cycle of stress, and then I left a little comment back, and I said, elaborate a little, please. What do you mean by that? And I also spoke to her we had a Zoom meeting last night for the 6 Steps to Slim members with a few people, and I also asked her, what did you mean by your question exactly? And she basically said what she's put in her comment below. She said about the cycle of stress of, like, there's a trigger and you feel stress, and then you cope with it in some sort of way, or there's an action or a response or something based on the situation or the trigger that's happened to you. And she's also put relapse and prevention, because she's obviously trying to move towards, like you said before, and is doing really well. Like she might be referring to something like stress eating, which she's getting under control using my program, for example. That's why she might be saying relapse, because right now she's doing well, and she's worried about maybe slipping back into old patterns and old habits maybe. So she's talking about something like trigger, response, cycle. What do you think to this?
So the first thing I put was it's not particularly a cycle. It's a response. So stress fundamentally is a bodily response. But then I thought about it. So in my environmental training, so I do a lot of environmental training for companies. It's what's called source pathway receiver. So you've got the source, which is the stressor, the thing that's stressing you out in the first place. That the pathway is simply stress is a movement through the body of energy, basically. It's you perceiving a stressor, and then it's the body becoming stressed. Okay, and then you've got, in essence, all right, well, what are we going to do about this then? Okay, and so basically you've got the thing that's stressing you out in the first place. You've then got the signs and symptoms of stress, and you've then got, right, okay, what am I going to do about this? Okay, so fundamentally, I think for me the question is, can you eliminate anything about this thing? Can you eliminate any triggers? Can you eliminate any stresses?
Like you said earlier, fix the problem. My category of deal with it.
Yep.
That's number one.
Yep. So there's different elements of that though. But so eliminating it's one thing, avoiding it's another. So eliminating it is getting rid of something. Avoiding it is actually staying away. And so that's, or can we alter something and then adapt? So you've got these different kind of, I think it's generally like 4 A's. In fact, we've got avoid, allow, accept, alter. And so like basically we've got lots of different ways of actually dealing with the thing. So again, can you avoid it, allow it? So again, can you actually come to terms with this? So again, let's say you've got a noisy neighbour. Can you allow them, can you permit them to be noisy? Or is it just going to stress you out all the time? Can you see the difference?
I definitely can, because you could be annoyed that someone's making noise next to your bedroom or next door or in your hotel room, but people don't have trouble falling asleep on a beach.
Yes.
When there's the sound of the ocean and there's seagulls, or whatever they do, and there's people in the ice cream van, because you're relaxed and you're thinking, sounds of, it's not the sound, it's how you perceive it. Again, it's not always what happens to you, it's how you feel about it.
Exactly, and so again, that's where the stress coping comes in. So again, can you do anything about the stressor fundamentally in those different ways we just mentioned? Mm-hmm. So the signs and symptoms then, so fundamentally it's knowing so I do this exercise, again, the main thing I talk about now is stress, again, to one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. My one-day manager course is mandated for all their managers now, and actually it's going to be going to all the employees now, and they've got a lot of employees, thousands. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of my topic, and what I do is I get everyone to put in, what are your signs and symptoms? And everyone's different.
Signs and symptoms of stress?
Yeah, everybody's completely different.
Yeah,
okay, so some people get irritable, some people procrastinate, some people start problem solving, some people get in your face, some people avoid things that are going to kind of cause problems. Some people get guts, some people get headaches. So there's no one size fits all. There's general signs and symptoms, okay? So you've got basically the brain stuff, you've got the negatives, you've got basically, it ramps up negative emotions, okay? Sadness, anger, despair, depression, negativity, worrying. So that's all the mental stuff. So again, can you see yourself becoming more negative? Then you've got the bodily stuff, okay? You've got the kind of classic, basically sweating, sweaty palms, heart rate going, gut feeling. Basically your stress fundamentally moves blood from your digestive system to your muscles so it can allow you to respond, but in that one action, it basically stops things in the stomach going anywhere, and it slows peristalsis right down, which is movement of food through your intestines. So I noticed on one of your people on the thing, this person hadn't been for a poo, because she actually put that in one of the comments. And so that's why stress is going to constipate you. It's going to make you ill because it's shutting down your immune system, 90% of which is in your gut.
Like we said before, it's fight or flight or rest and digest.
It is.
And not both.
You can, those two systems, so coming down into the body, you've got the autonomic nervous system, and it's either para or sympathetic. So it's either one or the two, and they can't be on at the same time. And so they're constantly cycling through the day, but they can't be on at the same time. So if you realise you've become stressed, this is what I'm coming on to, you've got to do something about it to relax. You've got to do something about it to relax. And so you've got all these physical signs and symptoms, but then you've got the behavioural symptoms. Again, so you've got avoidance, you've got procrastination, you've got aggression, irritability, you've got risk-taking. So risk-taking increases with stress. You've got increased substance use, and again, that's things like comfort eating, drinking, etc. You've got gambling. Gambling increases with that. And so all the behavioural. So can you see how you're behaving differently as a result of the stressor? So there's lots of signs and symptoms to watch out for. And again, so know your profile. So in the manager course, we do what's called the Wellbeing Action Plan. So it's well worth being aware of, everybody. Okay, so it's produced by Mind, the mental health charity. There's two of these. The Standard Wellbeing Action Plan, which allows you to look at your own, basically, A, what keeps you well, B, what triggers you into stress, your own kind of like risk profile. How do I get stressed? But it's a work kind of thing, so it kind of how your manager can help you, and it's got all this. But there's also one for working from home, and so that's everyone's blown away by this now, because it's like, bloody hell, nobody knows this thing exists, and so it's really useful because it allows, if you're stressed and you've got a manager, this is for the employee to fill in, and you can let your manager know, this is what I'm going through at the minute, and it's a great document. So it's called the Wellness or Wellbeing Action Plan, Wellness Action Plan from Mind, and that's the working from home version. So we're back to this, okay? So I remember when Anita Zumba Grant messaged me a while ago, and she said, I've got this situation, and I said, do you want the long version or the short one? She's like, you know what, just give me the short one. You've got two options: deal with it or get over it. They're your options. That's it. Okay. In other words, you can do something about this thing, leaky pipe, get it fixed. That wasn't her problem. Okay. Or you can't deal with the thing. Again, let's say somebody's lost a loved one, or you're getting made redundant. You can't do much about that. You've then got to deal with how you feel about it. And so we've got dealing with how we feel about it. We've got adaptive. Okay, talking to somebody. So basically, social sharing. You've got support. You've got getting support from other people. Can other people help you out? You've got can you deal with how you feel about it by doing some of those things? Can you come to a different perspective on this? In other words, can you start to kind of look at it and go, do you know what, I've got to get a different... So but basically, again, you'll hear people who've lost someone, especially lost children at a young age. That lady I was talking about, Lucy Hone, in that TED Talk, okay? People will often say it shouldn't have happened. She was taken too young. Okay, it was a life cut short. And I've watched an amazing interview with a woman who's had a daughter, I think it was, who died from a drug overdose. And people were saying, oh yeah, it's such a shame, life cut short. And she said, no. That was her life. She lived a full life. And I was like, what, bloody hell, wow. That's amazing, because she can't deal with it, so she's got to come to a different appreciation. She went, no, that was the full life. That was it. Okay, she lived a full life. It was like, yeah. I mean, imagine how hard
that was just imagination, wasn't it? It was just
So imagine how hard that must have been ridiculous to come to that, and that's why you go to professional help. So again, I'm a massive advocate of saying, look, if you've got a problem with your foot, okay, you've got a verruca, you go to a chiropodist or something. If you've got a problem with your teeth, you go to a dentist. If you've got a problem upstairs, you go to a counsellor. It's as simple as that. And I've worked this out last night. So somewhere on here, I worked it out. I'm like, right, okay. If you needed 2 days of counselling, what's it going to cost you? And I said, yeah, there's a little maths. £2.66, right? If you spend £2.66 a day on a coffee or something you don't really need to buy, can you afford £2.66 a day? Well, if you can, okay, that will buy you 2 counselling sessions a month, okay, once a fortnight. And I paid for mine privately, so £40 an hour sounds a lot of money. It really does. But I worked it out. I go to Starbucks most days. I spend £3 a day. That's 30 days. 100 quid on coffee, and then the petrol to get there and back, which is about 50 quid every month. I spent £150 on getting a coffee, and it was like, oh my god, I don't tell my wife.
Well, this is going on the internet, Mark, so let's be honest, she doesn't watch it.
Yeah, I have told the wife. But it's just ridiculous, isn't it? So if you can afford that, okay, can you afford to go and see a professional who can help you here? Now, if you're going through the NHS, you might be looking at potentially weeks and months now, just because of COVID. It's put the waiting times back up again. But if you can afford to go private, it's well worth considering, because what they can do is they can help you come to terms with something that you can't actually deal with, because there are some things in life that can't be dealt with. It's as simple as that. But for everything else, again, get a plan. Is this something I can think about and put into action? Break it down. Okay, so we need what's called approach behaviour. Approach behaviour is face and confront. So again, if you remember one of the first times I came and spoke at your organisation, because I knew I was coming, and it was, again, a lot of people with food issues, I researched it, and there was a lady, I don't know if she was called Benny Brown, and it was, don't stuff your face your stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I remember. I don't remember her saying that. I've not seen that. I remember you saying it and me going, ooh, because that burns you.
Oh, it does.
That's the hardcore truth.
And you saying basically it's like masturbation for the mouth. Remember that when you said that?
Snacking, yes.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's like masturbation for the mouth.
Oh.
And so, are we dealing with the thing? And if it can be dealt with, face it and confront it. So I've got a relative who went into a voluntary financial arrangement because she just got way too much debt. And there's a good reason why she got into that debt. And again, most of it's emotional and because of what happened to her in a not very nice situation. And so she didn't cope with that very well. And so she had to go bankrupt. So for 5 years, she had to pay these people back. Not the people, the companies. But she did it. And she slogged for 5 years, but at the end of it, okay, in other words, she faced and confronted that situation. She broke it down into manageable chunks, took action on those chunks, followed the process, and then after 5 years was financially excellent. And now escaped Rotherham and went down to live. Seriously, went to live at the side of the River Trent. I mean, she's in a real nice area now, and she's got and this is the other thing. It taught her the value of money, and it taught her how to manage money, and so she's better off than any of us in the family now. But it came from that adversity. Again, it came from that apparent setback. And just facing up to it.
Turning obstacles into advantages, like you said.
And so if you can face it and confront it, great. If you can't, get some help. Get some help from family, friends, but don't go it alone. I've had a suicidal crisis. It's not fun, but I had enough insight to know what was going on. And so that was the second time I went to counselling when I went through that situation. And so don't be on your own. Again, you've got the Samaritans who perform an amazing job. There's basically lots of things that we can look at in terms of stress as signs and symptoms, but can we do anything about it? And if not, we need some emotional coping, and again, better ones than maladaptive. And so
that sounds really good.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's probably Okay, so
I think we should go on to the last question.
Yeah.
Because this next question leads on nicely from what you've just said, essentially.
Yeah.
Because this is about maladaptive coping mechanisms. So this question comes from Tracy, but it's going to be pertinent to every single person, especially in my audience. Anybody who likes food or struggle with food in any way. Is going to feel this one. She says, why does stress trigger... Let me start again. Why does stress trigger food/comfort cravings? So why does stress trigger comfort eating, and how to deal with the stress rather than the craving? This is essentially what you've just said, isn't it? So this is about... Firstly, everybody gets stressed.
Yeah.
Stress is going to come. You should expect it.
Yeah.
You might not be stressed now, but you will be at some point in the future. This is all normal. Don't beat yourself up about that, because then that's just feeling bad for feeling bad, isn't it? And compounding the problem. So number one is stress is going to come. Number two is, like you said, fix the problem or cope with it emotionally, deal with it or cope with it, as I call it. And then it's going down the path of, if you can fix the problem or not. Everybody needs stress management methods, don't they? Everybody, like you said, if you're feeling stress, we need methods to try and change this and turning this round. It's about trying to use the methods that are helpful and not harmful.
Yeah.
It's natural to turn to food. It's not the food really that the brain wants when people comfort eat. It's the change of brain state.
Yeah.
The brain wants the dopamine really hit from it wants to de-stress or distract.
Well, yeah, there's some truth in that, but it does want the energy. Because it's going back to an evolutionary...
Your brain always tells you to overeat. Always. It's not even a stress thing.
Yeah.
If you're happy, your brain will say, celebrate, why don't we have a beer or cake? If you're stressed, why don't you eat? You'll feel better.
Yeah.
If you're bored, why don't you eat? That'd spice things up a little bit. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life, stress or not, your brain, like you said, evolutionary, it's primed. And one of its number one things is search for and seek out high-calorie food for survival, isn't it?
Yep.
So your brain, it's an important understanding to realise that no matter what goes on in your life every single day, the brain will say, why don't you eat? It doesn't matter what's going on. So whether it's stress or not. But in this case, the person's feeling stressed. They want to de-stress or distract away from that feeling. The brain knows that you love food. The brain knows that food releases dopamine and that food feels good because it's been making these links, especially if you've been habitually stress or comfort eating throughout time in the past. Your brain's been making these links for a long time between eating food and feeling better, mentally, even if only short and temporarily. And it does work. When you eat some food or some chocolate or some ice cream, you will feel less stressed, you will feel distracted, you will feel, like we said, pleasure of the mouth. You will feel these things. It's real, like you said, it's positive, immediate and certain. Ice cream in the tub, it's going to feel nice, that's positive, it's definite, it's immediate, it's going to feel nice right now because it's only just in the fridge there. And it's certainly going to feel nice because you bought the ice cream flavour that you like, in the brand that you like. So it's definite, and your brain goes, feeling stressed, don't we? And it'll go with a spider diagram of ways to fix it, and food's like just one of them. Loads of different ways you could de-stress, loads of different ways you could distract. But if you've been turning to that food always, it's not that it doesn't work, it does. But for my people, or people listening to this podcast, maybe people that have got health, fitness, weight management goals, or anything like this, it's not that it doesn't work, it's just that it's too expensive.
Yeah.
Not in terms of money, but in terms of their health and their other goals. Like the tub of Ben & Jerry's costs £2, but really it costs 1,400 calories.
Right, okay.
That's, for somebody who's on a fat loss diet, maybe 80% of all your calories for the day or something. So and then it's costing them feeling like they're off track and feeling like they've done the wrong thing and compounding negativity and, oh, why did I do that? This is what it's really costing you, isn't it? Not the £2. Yeah. So the brain does link towards the food as a positive, always evolutionary. And we do love food.
Yeah.
And the foods are created to be nice. Ben & Jerry's make the ice cream as nice as possible.
Oh, it's not made like that for a laugh, is it? It's
no, they're scientifically designing it in laboratories to be as nice as possible.
Yeah.
Every year they try and improve the recipe.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
They're making it as tasty as it can possibly be. So it's no one's fault they get stressed. It's no one's fault they want to escape it. It's no one's fault they love food either. It's to accept these things on the pathway down it, isn't it? But it's then, like you said, when it gets down to the what are we going to do about it, what are you going to do about the stress, we either need to focus on fixing the stress or have adaptive coping mechanisms, as you said, that are helpful and not harmful, and also make them, I would say, practiced and easily accessible. Like one of the things I was going to say about the sleeping question earlier was meditation and breathing and yoga sucks if you only do it when you're stressed.
Yeah.
You need to practice it when you're not stressed. If you only meditate when you're really stressed, when you need it, that's not going to work.
Because it's linking it to a sign. It's linking it to a sign that this is linked to stress rather than this is what I do anyway.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought you meant.
That's interesting. Yeah. I was just thinking along the lines of, like, meditation's hard, for example. It's a difficult thing. It's easy to get distracted.
I've challenged that because it's hard. It's hard if you try and do it like monks do. Okay, in other words, sat there.
Force yourself. That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, sat there in silence. Trust me, that's the worst thing to do. Don't do that because it's freaking impossible. Whereas if you do guided meditation, and there are literally thousands, tens of thousands of guided meditations on YouTube just waiting. Do one of those. And so guided meditations are way better because you've got a soft focus. And so I do this breathing exercise on every one of the courses that I do when we're talking stress and mental health. And people will always say, oh, I've tried this before, but that I completely lost myself there. I didn't think about anything else. And so all I'm doing is I'm guiding them. And so it's my voice, their breath. So, and so I don't tell them it's a meditation. I say we're going to do a breathing exercise. It's a scientifically proved breathing exercise. You are going to activate your vagus nerve. It's the 10th cranial nerve. It's longer than your sciatic nerve, and it's the modulator between your brain and gut that modulates mood, digestion, heart rate, and that's what we're going to activate. This is a scientific link between your brain and your gut. And you can control all this by breathing. And I've trained 100 police hostage negotiators in this technique. And then at the end of it, and I say, how was it? Oh, it was great, blah, 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 blah. I say, you've just meditated. Okay? I've just tricked you into meditating. And you've meditated on two things, my voice, your breath. That's a meditation. And mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, which can be prescribed on the NHS, when it sounds, I say you don't need any robes, you don't need incense or anything. It's long exhalation, deep breaths. That's it. That's all you are doing. Anyway, I'm conscious that I want to get onto this question and answer it with kind of what I've got here, if that's all right.
Yeah, fine. You make it sound easy. The meditation, but I don't agree that it's easy. The act of it's easy, but people are resistant to it, and it's hard to build a habit.
But that was the point. So my yoga practice, so I do it whether I'm feeling anything or not. Most of the time I'm not now. I'm pretty anxiety free at the minute. But every now and again my brain likes to, what I'm talking about here, I practice. I recognise these symptoms. I've got my cognitive behavioural therapy techniques for clinical practitioners in the car, which I nearly brought as well. So the reason I've got that is because in there it tells you a lot about anxiety, and so that's the book that medical professionals use. And so the way out of a panic disorder, for instance, is to reinterpret bodily signals. So rather than feeling your heart going and going, oh my God, I'm having a panic attack, I'm going to die, which is the additional thing that people think, over and above the stress response with panic attacks, I'm going to die. You can't die from a panic attack. Okay, it's simple as that. That's it. There's no question about that. There's no argument. You can't die from a panic attack. And when you allow people to reinterpret, this is just a stress response. This is just basically, there's something here, there's a stressor, and my body is simply, as we spoke about last week in Cafe Nero, ramping up. So like you warm your body up, okay, stress is just warming your body and brain up to allow you to respond. That's all it is. It's going, I'm going to get ready for you then. There's something here. You're saying it's significant. I'm not going to sit there doing nothing. I'm going to sit up. I'm going to wake up. And so your heart needs to do something then. And so it it puts blood and oxygen into your muscles, so they're energized. And so your palms get a bit sweaty. And your mouth goes dry, because that can wait. Digestion, all that stuff linked to saliva, that can wait. And so all these bodily things happen. So you can reinterpret all that. And that's the way out of panic attacks. When you start to go, oh yeah, it's just my heart going, because that's what stress does. Okay, yeah, but I've got the gut feeling something's wrong. Yeah, that's because it shuts your guts down. That's what that is. And it's reinterpreting those signs.
Again, it's not your fault, it's your function.
Exactly.
Making it not seem negative.
Exactly. So I'm going to answer
go for it.
Tracy's question, which was,
go.
Why does stress cause these cravings? So very simply, you've got the adrenaline gland. So the adrenaline gland is sat on top of your kidneys at the back of your intestines. On your kidney is your adrenal gland, and it's got an inside bit and an outside bit. The adrenal medulla is the inside part where adrenaline comes from. The adrenal cortex, the bit around it, is the bit where cortisol comes from. So you've got two stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, fundamentally. So adrenaline is a doing hormone. It's like, let's get something done. Okay, that might be punching my boss in the face, or it might be literally let's write this report. So you're either writing the report because you want to, or you're punching your boss in the face because you don't want to. Either way, adrenaline is going to help you out there. Okay. Right. Cortisol also gets chucked in there, and so it gives, in evolutionary terms, it gives a very short spike in pain, basically numbing pain. So the idea is if you got mauled by a bear, basically you don't feel the pain as much. That's what cortisol does. And it also increases your antibacterial qualities in the blood temporarily, again to kind of kill things like bacteria from claws and stuff. But again, once the kind of thing's over and done with, so basically if you've dealt with a problem, adrenaline and cortisol will go right back to normal pretty much. If there's persistent stress, in other words, if there's something here that can't be dealt with and you're not dealing with it, or it can be dealt with and you're avoiding it, okay, then we've got distress. And distress is you're not doing anything about it, okay? And then what cortisol does, it basically increases glucogenesis, which is to make sugar from proteins and fats. And it also makes you crave sugar, okay, because it's energy. And so basically the idea is if you're not doing something about a problem, but you're saying there's a problem here, the idea is nature's going to go, right, well, you might be better off eating everything in sight, because that's a good survival strategy, because you never know when you're going to need it. You don't know where the food's coming from. And so...
Eat things and hide.
Eat things. Now, 3,000 years ago, that was fine.
That would be a great tactic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because there was no Ben and Jerry's. And there was no cocaine.
And there also wasn't mortgages or long-term problems like that. The stresses that we experienced were either...
There was something you could do something about.
A tribe's coming for us, or we're getting attacked by a lion.
Yeah.
So we need to eat all the things and run off.
Yeah.
Otherwise they're going to take our food or eat us.
Yeah, exactly. And so these things have got evolutionary basis. Mm-hmm. But what we've now got, think about everything that we've got, it's practically come about in the last 500 years. You know what I mean? 500 years. And so nature hasn't had a time to adapt. And so we've still got these very old coping techniques. So our body's basically craving sugar.
It's called mismatch theory by Charles Darwin, isn't it?
Is that right?
Yeah, mismatch theory. Yeah, that's it's one of Darwin's less famous theories about how most of the problems in your life that you come up against, physical and mental stressors, or even physical problems, like he uses one of the examples of wearing glasses, is because we only look at things that are close and we read books. We're not scanning the horizons anymore like we would have been. That your body and brain is not primed or created for the world that we live in now. Industrial revolution changed everything except us.
So you've got this kind of again, craving sugar in the old days was good because it was generally fruit. That was the only place you got it from.
Yeah, and fruits weren't like they were now either. There wasn't that much sugar in the fruits.
Exactly.
It was basically honey only for pure sugar, and you have to climb up a tree and get attacked by bees to get it.
Yeah, and so
if you could get it, that'd be great.
Yeah. But you can't. And
not really.
In other words, you could have all this stuff, and actually it wouldn't be that bad for you. Whereas what we've got now is basically what are called super stimulants. Super stimulants. It's called the pleasure trap. There's a great TED talk on this, and basically you've got normal, and you've got this super stimulant. So the problem is, it goes, wow, this flipping tastes amazing. Or again, cocaine is one of. So in both these cases, cake, cocaine, drugs, gambling, anything, sugar, they basically trigger the brain's what's called dopaminergic incentive reward system. So it's this dopamine. It goes, that feels good. Do it again. Okay, which was great in the old days. Again, it was like, fill up on this stuff. It's only fruit. It doesn't matter. You're going to fart. That's it. And it's going to be good for your guts. So if you have got constipation, get loads of fruit down.
That's true.
And so it really is, isn't it? It really is. Get the prunes. Seriously, I'm at 2 cans of prunes. Prunes. Seriously, no, not just prunes. Prunes in tins. Pitted, you need the stones out. 2 cans of them a week. That's it. You'll have no problems. Anyway,
I'll make that a clip. I'll cut that bit out.
So we've got this super stimulant, and it goes, and so suddenly we go from normal to this. The problem is, you can't keep doing that because at some point you've got to come back down to normal. And so this is what happens. Your body goes, does it feel good? Of course it feels good. Again, any of those things, again, feel good. They're designed to feel good. Is it good for me? No. Okay. Is it good for others? Probably not. Is it good long term? No. Is it good for society? No. This is the deal.
I remember that checklist in a workbook you brought once.
Exactly. It's never, stop waiting for things not to feel good. They are never not going to feel good.
It's the positive immediate certainty.
I had a problem with drugs. Okay, and so for me, I stayed off the heroin. I really did. I had some friends that didn't, and I've lost 3 friends from that. But for me, okay, my Achilles heel has never been alcohol because it doesn't do anything for me really. It's never been food. For me, it's drugs. Okay, I haven't taken any for years, and I won't because A, I've got a daughter, and B, I've got a good job, and I can't afford to test positive. Simple as that. Okay. But there's no point pretending that if I smell certain things or if I see certain things or if I go to someone's house, it's going to be attractive. So I can't go to people's houses. I can't go to some people's houses because I know what they're doing there and I can't be near it. So that's me eliminating the problem by avoiding that risk because I know I'm not strong enough.
Can I say this is absolutely one of the biggest things with food as well. My number one thing for helping people, and everybody hates this piece of advice. This is my number one least applied, because when I say this, people don't do it. But it's the most hated piece of advice, but it's the most successful, is, like you were saying about everything in the environment changing, and we were talking about the mismatch theory. You have to change your own food environment. While ever, the person who constantly turns to the food every time they're stressed, and you're a human, you're going to get stressed, keeps buying the food and putting it next to them in the cupboards, you're always going to go back to it. You have to make it easier to succeed and harder to fail by changing the food environment. Because the pattern is somebody feels stressed, they eat the tub of ice cream. How long does that take? 20 or 30 minutes. Now what? You're still stressed. You've not fixed the problem. So what people do is feel
maladaptive.
They feel stressed, eat the food, and then find a better way to fix it, or do something that's more productive or actually helpful. So we just need to skip that step. Make it hard. Don't just have the ice cream there. Make it hard to access it. Make it so you can always get ice cream, but if you have to go walk all the way to the shop or get in the car and drive all the way there, it's less likely, isn't it? It's making it less immediate, at least, isn't it? It's kind of removing one of them. So rather than feel stressed, eat the food, and then actually fix it or do something about it or deal with it in a proper way, we just need to go straight from 1 to 3, don't we, and cut out the middle ones. I like that what you said there about not entering yourself into situations that make it difficult.
I just know it's ridiculous not to. So for me, how did I stop taking drugs? I know people aren't on drugs here, I know, but it's the same principle, okay? When did I stop? When I had to. Okay, when I had to. So
that's unfortunate as well, isn't it? Because people often leave things until they actually have to.
So this is another Tony Robbins thing. There's things we could do, there's things we should do, there's things we might do, there's things there's things we will do. When do you do anything? When you must. Okay, when you must. When are you going to stop smoking? For most people, when they have a health scare. Okay, might be when are you going to stop eating food?
It's the same.
It's going to be a health scare. It's going to be a health scare. So for me, it was when am I going to stop? And potentially it was when I test positive and lose my job, and that prospect. And then again we became pregnant, which again was planned. And then it was, and I just thought, right, if I'm ever going to stop, there's got to be it. And then another thing happened. I was doing my my diploma to become a safety consultant at the time, and I was still doing it, and I was supposed to be. I think I got this like 15,000 word thing to write, and it was supposed to be on this particular day. And I couldn't do it, and it was the first and only panic attack I've ever had. I've never had a panic attack. I've never had one since, and I didn't know what was happening either. And again, this was before I got into mental health training, so I didn't know what it was, and it literally scared the shit out of me. And I remember thinking, the only reason I'm in this boat, the only reason I'm in this position is because of my habit. Has basically stopped me doing what I should have been doing. And on that day, it became a must. I must stop. And it was literally overnight. It was overnight, and it was that. So, but the question is what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Okay, and what is it? And it's like, as I said to some people, one of my mates had got a problem with stress at work. And I said, mate, you're running off a cliff. You're literally heading to a mental breakdown. What are you waiting for? There's no one stood there stopping you. You're running straight over. What are you waiting for, mate? And he went off sick because he had to. It was the only thing, and he and that actually brought out a good result. What are you waiting for? Okay, and what if it never comes? Okay, and then what are the consequences?
People often feel like they're waiting for a better time or the right time or an easier time.
There's only one time. What's that time, Connor?
It's now.
It's now. There is no other time.
I have to explain this to people because do you know what I say?
There's no other time.
It's in your mind, isn't it?
It's a human mental construct. You remove 7 billion people from the planet, okay, and the future and the past disappear in an instant. They do not exist.
I have to explain to people sometimes about the food that if a better time was going to come, it already would have.
Yeah.
How many years have you been waiting?
Yeah.
How long has this been going on?
Yeah.
If there was going to be an easier time or a better time, then why hasn't there already been one?
When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. Okay, 20 years ago, because then you'd have a tree, my friend. When's the next best time? Now, because there is no other time. It is. And so, listen, I know this is not easy because I know how long I struggled, to kind of, to get myself off drugs. But if this is the whole point, if someone can learn from someone else's experience, so you're going to learn one or two ways from your own experience, and again it might be too late, and so
that's painful learning from your own experience sometimes.
It is, and the thing is, where's this going? Where's this behaviour going long term? Short term, yeah, great, it's going to be nice, great, but that's just like a hit of heroin. It's just like snorting coke. It's just like doing whatever in the drug world. But long term, where's this going? Okay, and so again, yes, it feels good, but cocaine, sugar, cake, they're always going to. They're never not going to. Stop waiting them to feel awful, to taste
stop
rubbish.
waiting to not like cake. That's not
You're
real.
never not going to like cake.
It's not real.
It's as simple as that. You're never going to not like it. But again, if you can look at the long-term picture and say, right, okay, yeah, Is it good for me? No. Is it good for those around me? No. Is it good for society? No.
And again, this is mismatch theory, because it is difficult to do that. It is difficult. You do have to actually try and think about the future, because again, your brain, like we were saying about evolution, is not wired to think about long-term outcomes of things, not that far ahead, not years ahead. Like, because if you eat cake now, nothing bad happens. But then, you have to eat a lot of cake for a while to cause an issue. So it's always later, isn't it?
But then if you think about it, that's what actually, if you think about it, that's why we're so much smarter than our ancestors, if you like, because we have got this brain, so we can see into the future, if you like. Now, the future doesn't exist, but we can literally mentally time travel and go, where is this behaviour going? And I've learned to ask that question in the last 25 years since the two fatalities at the foundry I worked at happened. Basically, this guy who's not isolating the machine, where's that behaviour going? Well, we should have done something. We should have done something. We didn't. And that guy literally finished up in a coffin, unfortunately. We should have done something. And so the question to the people watching this is, should you be doing something? What is it? And again, if you can't cope with it on your own, and I think that's the power of your group, isn't it? The power of your group is, and I saw the comments of people clearly struggling, and I saw those comments of support. And I know that's, Connor taught me the ABC, autonomy, belonging, competence. That's the thing with your group that people have really got, that they support one another. They feel like they belong to this group. And isolated rats are easy to addict. So it's really important that that again we kind of buy into that community. Not buying physically in money terms, but we just really, if we've got this community of help, like people have on your program, that we really utilise that, because again, it's a bad place to be. It's a bad place to be. There is. I'm going to literally. There's one question that somebody asked about, basically feeling isolated. Feeling isolated and kind of lonely because of the lockdown thing, and moving into depression and poor mental health. So very simply, as an acronym, PERMA, PERMA. So it's a positive psychology acronym, which is PERMA. So it's positive emotions. Okay, I'm going to do this very quickly because I'm aware of time. Engaging with life, positive emotions, engaging with life, relationships. The M is meaningful goals, and the A is accomplishments. And so, in other words, when you feel good, generally you've got positive emotions, you are engaging with life in some way, there's a relationship either normally with a person, maybe a pet, or nature in some way, or a hobby. There's a meaningful goal, this feels meaningful to me, and there's a sense of achievement. And the reason I'm going through that is because if you're isolated and feeling lonely and moving towards depression, your positive emotions are going to go down. You are disengaging from life. Again, your relationships potentially are going to suffer, or that might be the reason for the whole thing. There's less meaning in life, and you will probably accomplish less. So the using this tool is, how can I get more positive emotions back in my life? Where can they come from? What makes me feel good? What can I do again to get them back? How can I engage with life in some way? Okay, again, ideally with other people, which ties in the R, which is relationships. Again, if there's something going wrong in a relationship aspect, which relationships are good in terms of friends and family, and how can I kind of get them better? What's got meaning for me? And a lot of people struggle with what if they haven't got a passion. What are you curious about? What's your curiosity? What are you interested in? Okay, meaningful goals. It's really important in depression terms, because that's what gives us serotonin. And then achievements and accomplishments, which gives us the dopamine and serotonin, feeling good about doing something. So I just wanted to get that one in and just literally cover it as quick as I could, just because I saw it and thought that looks like somebody could probably do with a bit of kind of help on that bit.
It's very powerful, and I always feel like people want to, as a base, probably be happy in life.
Yeah.
I would say that's a goal that most people have. People want to be happy. And what you've just described are paths or compartments to happiness, essentially. And I often feel like the more people have those areas that you've just identified, the less they try and grasp at for food to get pleasure and dopamine and excitement for life. The more you have positivity and achievements and, like you said, hobbies and interests and relationships and self-fulfillment, all this kind of stuff, the more that goes on, the less people will try and make up for it in any one other area, whether it is drugs, whether it is food or anything like that. The less the need for that will be felt, I feel.
It was Stephanie Quinn. I just thought I'd like to answer that. So even if I'm making your thing go on longer than it's supposed to, okay. I just really want to get that one in, just because I kind of felt a pain on that on that particular question. So the question is, which of those, the PERMA, which is the problem? How can I get more of that particular thing? And again, so you've got self-help. How can I help myself in this area? And then you've got professional help potentially, because again, if it is that bad, let's reduce the stigma around getting help for kind of mental health issues. And so again, social support, again, sharing, talking to people, relaxation, again, because basically depression and anxiety are both stress-based illnesses. So any form of relaxation is going to make them better. Exercise, again, that gives you 5 of your 7 neurochemicals of happiness. Exercise gives you adrenaline, endocannabinoids, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. Sorry for Beth, who was probably trying to write that down there. You might have to. Nutrition, okay.
There's no way you could write down everything you've been through today. So
I know.
You absolutely have.
I know. So literally, so nutrition feeds the gut, and the gut feeds the immune system. 90% of the immune system is in your gut, and they are going to make you feel better. And there I think we should probably stop.
Absolutely amazing, Mark. It's been so lovely to see you again. We did 4.5 questions maybe out of maybe 20. So I think it's going to have to be episode number 2 on the Slum Society Stress series coming up, named such as thus immediately.
So I apologise in advance for... Have you stopped it already now? Okay,
don't stop the recording.
I apologise in advance for talking fast, but I've got, the problem is, like, Connor's like, why do you prepare? And it's like, 'cause I've got that much to talk about. It's difficult to talk about it in 5 minutes on these particular topics.
We're talking about the mind.
Impossible. Every
person's different.
So apologies for anybody who doesn't like fast talkers. Maybe if you record me and put me on like half speed.
You worry too much. Do you know why? Because if they didn't like it, they wouldn't have got 1 hour into you wouldn't have got this far into the episode. So anybody who's made it to this point to hear you apologise for speaking too fast loves it for definite. Everybody else turned off to like 2 minutes in. They thought, who are these bald guys?
Who are these bald guys? Yeah. Who are these bald guys in the socks and slippers?
Exactly. Thank you for coming down,
Hey,
Mark.
pleasure.
I hope that helped. Thank you for listening. Everyone, if you've got questions, drop them on. You can private message me through the Slum Society page. We'll get back to you if you've got questions. You can drop on comments or you can message us. Thank you very much.